Don't say that, Ruff.
Oh my God. They never shut up. I swear to God.
It's a talk show.
I should start drinking. I know I should start drinking. Why don't I drink? You guys drink. I should drink. I know.
It's 9 o'clock in the evening.
Could you imagine how I would be if I drunk?
Dean, where are you in England?
I'm in near London, County of Essex.
Essex Girls?
I'm afraid. You've heard of Essex Girls? What, Tracy's?
I never heard of it. I'm into British comedy, man, big time. So I've heard of Essex Girls and the whole thing.
White stiletto. My wife's an Essex girl, so I've got to be careful.
Oh, okay.
We're live.
Hey, Chris. Hey, Private. All righty, guys. We got a special show for you guys today here at the War Room. Holy cow. I don't even know how to begin, but we have the man, the legend, the myth is here with us.
Dean is here.
Tony, from Tony's Board Life. Yeah. All right. Woohoo.
Hey, I'm back. I almost wanted to do a proof of life video.
Where have you been?
I thought we were talking.
Yes.
Sorry, I thought we were talking about Tony.
We are talking about Tony.
I'm talking about Tony.
Yeah.
What's up, Doug?
Where in the hell have you been all these weeks, Tony?
Family. And working on a book deal and some other stuff, trying to, spread out. Your coattails are getting too short. I might have to jump onto somebody else's coattails. So I'm trying to work that one out.
Brutal. That's brutal. I invited you back as a special guest, and that's how you treat me?
Well, Chris made a point.
Guess what? You're off. We also have
He's muted already?
another special guest.
Would that take 1 minute to do that?
Another special guest, Mr. Hermann Luttmann. Hermann Luttmann is here with us today.
It's actually Luttmann, but that's okay.
Did he miss?
I know it was a joke, guys.
I figured we're going to start off already, right?
Oh, we're just having a good time. How are you, Mr. Luttmann?
Everything's great. Thank you for having me on.
You regret it, Herman. You regret it.
Chris, not too badly. It was quite admirable. Yeah, so it was good.
Hi, Mike.
How you doing? Good to see Mike on with us again. Thank you, everyone, for coming out. We got a busy show.
Mike is a true celebrity.
About a bunch of good stuff. We've got, of course, Tony back. He wants to talk about some stuff that happened while he was gone. And, of course, me and Ruff, you put up with me for 2 weeks by yourself. It's probably been the best 2 weeks of your life, hasn't it?
It's been fun.
He's in counseling because of that.
He's permanently scarred.
My wife, she's been earning her money. So there we go. But yes, we had to hold the fort on our own.
And I wasn't supposed to say this. I wasn't supposed to say it, but I'm going to say it anyways, Tony. I think if you didn't come back, Ruff was going to start crying. So I'm so glad you're back, because Ruff was he was emailing me and asking me, is he going to come back? Did I do something to make him mad? So I'm really glad you're back, because I don't know if I could put it up with Ruff and his whininess.
Ruff is all about the team.
Yeah. There's no I in team. Remember that.
Right?
But there is a me.
All right, smart ass.
You don't miss him anymore, do you?
No, I didn't. I did miss him. I didn't go as far as emailing and crying, but yeah, I did miss the old sod. Yeah.
Hey, you know what? We haven't done this. This is our first time. We haven't actually saluted our good friends that come out every week and view us. So let's give a toast to everyone that comes out here, all of our viewers today. So we love you all for coming out. Toast to everyone. So we appreciate your time. Okay, well, I guess we should get busy talking about some stuff. It's going to be a packed show. So, Herman, how you doing? I mean, seriously, how you doing? You hanging in there?
Everything's fantastic. Yeah, thank you for having me on. I really appreciate it. It's good to see Tony here.
Yep, thanks.
Well, we were going to have you last week, but we know there's this other little tiny channel out there doing something or another.
Oh no!
And he really, we figured we should give give him a little bit of some scoop on what's going on, just so we can get some, give him some love. So we decided to postpone you another week and have you after his show. So
that's fine.
We wanted to give him some love. So
absolutely.
So who wants to start? Tony, Ruff, why don't you start?
All right, I'll start. We've got to talk about this game of yours, haven't we, Herman?
Okay.
I'm going to talk about some others you might not want me to, but
there's a bunch of them out there. I'm ready.
A most fearful sacrifice in Flying Pig Games.
Right.
Yeah.
So that is submitted to Kickstarter. We still haven't gotten approval, at least as of today. I think it's taken a little extra time to do that now. Obviously, understandable. But yes, that is the entire Battle of Gettysburg using a variation of the blind sword system. The same system that I used for the Devils to Pay.
Called the Black Swan.
Yeah, I had to come up with another name that had
there's no reason. It's just a whizzy name you came up with.
BS.
Well, I can think of some others I could have given you some help there, but never mind. Too late now. So blind swords again, so it's going to be good for solo.
Yes.
Yeah,
yes.
And the blind sword's been around a little while. What's the first game you put that in? A game called Franco-Prussian War.
Well, look at him with his research over there, huh?
Oh, man.
It actually was called Duel of Eagles for White Dog Games, but it was on the Battle of Mars-Latour, yes.
Was it not published in Paper Wars?
Position Magnifique, yes.
Right.
It was another version of it was in Paper Wars, yes. So that was the first time I used that system. It actually wasn't called the Blind Sword system at the time. I didn't have a name for it. It was just, a design.
Yeah.
Right. Oh. First time I used blind swords was for Stonewall Sword. Right. And that is from a poem by Stephen Vincent Benet, I think. And one of the lines in there was blind swords meet, and Fred found that. Fred Manzo found it.
You think he's joking?
I don't think so.
Sorry, Herman. Carry on.
That's all right. Boy, now I have to be careful, I guess.
No, you don't.
I even wore my Tennessee hat today. There's a Tennessee flag. Right. So the Blind Sword's name comes from that poem. I thought it was very appropriate because it's based on historical chaos. And then Black Swan fit in nicely because it's supposed to represent Black Swan events, those events that you do not, that come out of nowhere that you don't expect. And the whole game philosophy is about playing and dealing with things that happen to you, but historically based, not just random stuff. And thinking on your feet, having a plan that will accommodate multiple variations, and being ready for anything that can happen to you. So that's where that name came from. So
you sound quite proud of this one.
Well,
talking about it many moons ago.
Well, it was a lot of work. We've been working on it for quite a while. If anybody wants to know why we did this, so the Devils to Pay came out. It was just on the first day of Gettysburg. It was basically an experimental game in that we changed the scale for the blind sword system just to see if it would handle larger engagements. The problem with the blind sword system for Revolution games is that it's regimental scale. So at a certain point, and I think Tony would agree, at a certain point, chit pull won't work anymore. Not at that scale, right? Eventually, your cup fills up with 40 chits, and you're there all day long.
I'll be honest with you. I'm playing 3 Days at Gettysburg, the AGBA CW game.
Yes,
with a friend, and the chits are starting to get overwhelming. To be honest with you,
right? And Roger Miller at Revolution Games recognized that Longstreet Attacks, which is just on the second day of Gettysburg, was about as meaty as you want to get for a chit pull game. Otherwise, it's just going to take way too long. So I had to come up with something else to do because everybody wanted to, hey, why don't you do Antietam? Why don't you do, all these other big battles? And I said, well, because that system's not going to as it is right now at that scale is not going to work. So Devils to Pay was kind of an experimental game to see, can we get it to work at this different scale? And that was one of the great things about Tiny Battle games. They basically have taken over from what VPG used to do, Victory Point games, where you could kind of experiment with these games and try out different designs and see if they take or not.
Mm-hmm.
So the Devils to Pay did fairly well, and everybody, of course, said, "What about day 2?" Right? You know,
Right.
like, okay. So I started looking into it, and other than the physical issues that you're going to have with another edition or an expansion, making sure that all the colors match up because you're using different ink, and then the maps look different and maybe the pieces don't quite match. All that aside, if you do the second day, you almost automatically have to do the third day because you're not going to do another expansion just on the third day.
Mm-hmm.
Then all of a sudden the expansion became bigger than the first game. Right? Because you have a lot more units are coming in on the second and third days.
Second day.
So eventually I just said to Mark, I said, "Mark, why don't we just do the 3 days of Gettysburg in one deluxe, bang it out there. Everything will match. Just let's do it up nice." And that's how we came up with this game.
So you got Rick Barber to do the maps for you. And I understand, this is just hearsay, that he was jokingly, in inverted commas, moaning because you kept increasing the map size.
The physical size of the map.
It's 15 square foot of maps.
Yeah, it is.
Crazy. I love the Rick Barber maps, though. They're very. They give that sort of contemporary feel. I know you don't not too much, Tony, but they.
Tony's got something to say about that.
I know. Mute him. So
you want me to mute him, Herman? Just give me the thumbs up.
No. I'm happy to have this conversation. It's fine.
I like them. They're busy and but they have a contemporary feel to them of that age. That's why I like them. Yeah,
right.
They're not for everybody, like most maps.
I know what Tony's going to say. I think I know what Tony. Well, go ahead, Tony.
Well, it's just I don't know. They're too much, and I don't know. I can play on them, and maybe I just need to play on them more. And maybe I'm just used to the older kind of, classical Simonich type maps. But
Joe Yost and Simonich and all that, yeah.
It looks like I don't know. I heard this, and I kind of hesitant to say it, but it looks like a bunch of colored pencils drawn on a map.
It is.
I don't know.
Because it is. Yeah.
That's what it is.
I've got Kernstown by Red Luton Games, and I've only played it a couple of times. I'll have to get to video it. But to be honest, being a Brit, the American Civil War, it's got to take something to get me going.
Is it? I've always wanted to ask that. Is it popular in Europe? I thought it was kind of popular.
It might well be.
Okay.
Napoleonic certainly is because it happened all over this way. But what I was going to say was when I get the map out and put it under the plexi, I sit and look at it for 10, 15 minutes, just looking at it, picking out all the bits. And I love his maps. They're very.
Yeah, and I'm going to say to Tony, so what I tell people, because people either love them or hate them. It doesn't seem to be.
Yeah, there's not a mix yet.
Right? And the only thing I can say is when you first look at them, they're kind of works of art. They look overwhelming because he puts a lot of detail in there. Obviously, if you've ever seen the map for Thunder in the Ozarks.
Yeah, well, I've got
every single tree is on there.
Yeah, I do have Longstreet attacks, and that's mainly because I'm kind of a Gettysburg type. I like anything that has to do with the Battle of Gettysburg. It's an auto buy for me.
Right.
Even if I'm not a big map fan with it, it's an auto buy, and a lot of it has to do with family history of second great grandfather fighting at Gettysburg.
Here we go again.
So I have that connection. So that's why Gettysburg's almost an auto buy for me.
Oh, that's terrific.
That's fair enough.
So the map at first looks really intimidating, and I just tell people if you just take the time and look at the layout of the terrain, it's very logical. Mm-hmm. The way he's got it colored. If you just get past the fact that he's got rocks and trees everywhere and fences and all that, you just look at the lay of the land, and you'll see that it just comes to life, almost 3D. And most of your LOS questions and all that really become pretty logical. I mean, you're looking at it, and it's pretty clear where the high areas and low areas are, and So yes, I agree that at first it can be very intimidating to look at it. It looks impossible, but we did learn after the first edition of Stonewall Sword that he put in, I think it's in Thunder in the Ozarks too, little elevation numbers.
Yes.
Right, in circles, right? And in A Most Fearful Sacrifice, he's got them not in white circles, but just penciled in on the different levels, so you can see the numbers if you look for them. But they blend in.
So I just pulled up the flying pigs on it because I was gonna question about the map, and it says get 2 game maps. How is that accurate for 15? Are they just really big maps, or are they?
It's 15 square feet if you put them together.
Okay, so it's
Right.
2 maps. Are they bigger than the standard 1 map size, or are they the what is it, 24 by 33?
Something like that.
Yeah, they end up being, was it 3 by 5? I think with the 2 of them together. So yeah.
Okay. So it's on 2 maps then.
Well, yes, the whole battlefield's on 2 maps, but I specifically designed most of the scenario. 9 out of the 13 scenarios only use 1 map.
Oh, excellent.
Okay.
Right.
All right, because I knew this was going to be a problem because a lot of people, and Mark and I talked about this. I said a lot of people tell me I don't have room for this. You know, I'd love to play all of Gettysburg, so I made sure that we designed plenty of scenarios that you could just use on the 1 map, or even a lot of them were just part of 1 map.
I was about to say most of the action happens in just one general area, so yeah, that would make sense.
Right. There is a lot of extra area around the fringes, right? Especially in the south part of the map. But that's because the last scenario is called Tattered Flags. And that's basically a what if free for all where you can adjust the reinforcement schedules. You can have Longstreet go all the way around on the right if you want. You can do a lot of different things.
Yeah.
Yep.
No, it's definitely, I'm waiting for it on Kickstarter so I can just hit that back.
Yeah,
I was hoping that I would hit you with some great breaking news and give you a date, but I texted Mark.
What's up with this? You're supposed to show up with information. We talked about this last week. You show up with information or don't show up. One or the other. Man.
I don't know. I could just give you a bad date and then apologize later.
Fine.
I don't know.
Nobody's going to know. Nobody's going to remember.
Do Flying Pigs do UK and EU friendly postage shipping?
I don't know how all that works. You'd have to ask Mark about that. I know you guys are getting killed with VAT and everything, right? Yeah.
Well, maybe, but yeah. But we'll see. We'll see how it goes. I'll wait for those 500s to turn up before to see if I cancel the rest of them. So we'll see what happens. It's a bit weird at the moment, a bit in limbo.
Yeah.
I saw on Dan's show, you consider this a monster game in scope, but not in size. Is that what you were?
Yes.
Is that pretty accurate?
Yeah. Somebody asked me, do you consider this a monster game or a mini monster? And I mean, physically, I guess you'd say it's a monster game, but it doesn't have that many counters. I think there's 300 counters.
Are they pre-rounded?
Actually, they are.
Oh, thank God for that.
They're the ones that are the individual. Yeah.
Right.
Yeah.
Thank God for that.
So one of the reasons I designed this game is I wanted to do a Gettysburg game that was playable.
Oh, you mean spending 40 hours getting through the first game for the first day of Gettysburg isn't playable?
Exactly.
I'm at 45 to 50 hours plus on our 3 days of Gettysburg game that I'm playing. We're on to the second day. We're finally like in the morning of the second day.
Wow. Yeah. See, I mean, this stems from, I was an accountant in my real job for many, 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 many years. And the one thing I didn't want to do was, after crunching numbers all day long and looking at charts and tables and all that, I didn't want to come home and play my game and then crunch numbers and look at charts and tables. And so I tended to avoid monsters or 50-page rule books, and so I designed that way. I tried to design accessibly, so people can play the game. I still think one of my great faults is that my games are still not fast enough to play. They're not as fast to play as I'd like them to be. But with this design, I definitely tried to go with this is going to be playable. This is going to be accessible. People are going to be able to figure this out. There's only 24 pages of rules, so it's not a monster in that sense. We used cards instead of chits. So the cards, as I was saying before to you guys, the cards have the command tables on the card. The events are described on the cards. So instead of pulling chits, you're going to be drawing cards. And if you remember from Blind Swords games, if you pull a chit that has an event on it, you'd have to go and look at a table to find out what the event does. Well, now it's just written on the card, do this. And as far as activations go, we activate by core. So you draw the core card, and it'll tell you right there. There's the command table is right on the card. You just roll against that table right there. So there's no extra looking up to do.
Okay, so that leads me into something. Actually, so I went through and I pulled my collection, and I found I own 4 games that you have designed. 3 of the 4 are solitaire.
I saw your video, so I know you have a magnificent style.
I have Crowbar, Dawn of the Zeds,
right,
and then I have Long Street Attacks. So I've played 3 of the 4. I've not played Long Street Attacks. It's actually, I've put it on my list to play this year now. It's like getting on there. So with the solitaire game, so it leads me to 2 things. One is you just brought me up. So did you want to do cards for in Magnificent Style? Because I have the old VPG version where you had the chits and then you kind of had to look it up. And was that whole idea so you wouldn't have to pull that up anymore? So the events, it tells you what to do right on the card? Right.
The exact philosophy I just said to you was when we did the deluxe edition of in Magnificent Style, I said to Grant at Worthington, I said, well, there's a few things that bug me about the original. I mean, I designed the game 10 years ago, so I've learned a lot more about designing since then. And I said, I want to fix these few things. You know, the bayonet combat I wanted to fix, and I wanted to use the cards, again, to speed the game up and make it a little bit, you know, a little quicker playing and a little more interesting.
Yeah. I wasn't going to pick that up because I have the original. But when I saw that, I ended up buying all the 3 of the games that when they came out with the newest one, the Chinese one, I ended up going, okay, well, I know I have an excuse to get that.
Oh, keep up the fire?
Yeah, so they packaged that one plus the Soviet Dawn version all into, like, you can get them all 3.
Yeah,
I was like, okay.
I think it's great that they're doing that. Yeah, they're picking up the games that Tabletop Tycoon is not picking up.
Yeah. Yeah, which those are some good games.
They're going to do Malta Besiege, too.
What was that?
They're going to do Malta Besiege, too.
Ooh, cool. I'll have to definitely get that one because I enjoy those.
Well, there you go, Herman. That's some news.
See, I brought you some news.
There you go. A little baby news, but
I'm always big on. So you do a lot of solitaire games because, like I said, 3 of the 4 I have solitaire games. Is there a win percentage you're looking for on your solitaire games? And if there is, can you bump it up a little bit more so I can get some wins?
I was going to say 0%, but
I think people are moaning about in Magnificent Style. The actual loss rate is quite high.
Oh, it's high. Yeah, it's high.
Actually, the Dawn of the Zeds loss rate is even higher than that.
Oh, really?
And I'm very proud of that, by the way.
That's how it should be, shouldn't it, Herman?
Well, look.
Otherwise, it gets too easy.
So as far as solo games go, for me, they have to want to keep you coming back, right? So for me, they're like that your favorite video game, right? Where you keep going back because you got to hit that next level, and that's what draws you in is the fact that you haven't beaten it on the first try.
Or you just tell them to get good.
There you go.
And stop whining. Get good, beat the game, and stop whining.
Well, here's my thing is if I win a solo game on the first play, I know it's broken or I cheated. One of the 2. Right. One of the 2. I either cheated or it's really not worth playing if it's that easy to win.
That's funny too because I was just on Facebook with Michael Kelly, the One Stop Co-op Shop guy. I don't know if you guys watch his show, but so he's doing a lot of war games now, which is great. I mean, credit to him for actually covering war games.
Yeah.
And he had a really good score the first time he played in Magnificent Style. And I'm like, all right, well, good for you. And then he messaged me and he goes, oh, by the way, I forgot to draw all the blue event cards. And I go, well, oops. And I said, all right, well, that makes me feel better actually now because I was worried it was going to be too easy.
That's
Right.
good.
Yeah, that's always one of those things. It's like, I think I read someplace that about 20 to 30% is a good win percentage for solo games. Does that sound about right? Or
Yeah, that sounds a little high to me.
okay,
But that's me.
Yeah.
Because Tony, I'm exactly like you. If I play a solo game and I kick its ass on the first time, I'm like, well, why would I ever play this again?
Yeah.
Right? Now,
yeah,
the
I
cool
just
thing
can't get out of France with Rommel. That's all.
Rommel. They had to mention Rommel, didn't you?
Oh yes, let's talk about Rommel.
Oh, God.
Oh no, are you talking about the
Field Commander Rommel.
the DVD
Yeah,
game?
DVD game.
Oh,
Commander Rommel, where Rommel
game-
tried to take over
That game I
Africa,
gave up. I couldn't do anything with
Crazy.
that.
and the Frenchies sent Rommel back to Germany because they couldn't do anything.
Yeah, that game was hard. Yes, I agree.
The first campaign is hard. Yeah.
Yeah.
And he brings it up every time he can, because we both did a video and we both failed.
Me
Wow.
too. You can add me to the list because I've played that game a number of times. I was like, oh my God, what am I doing wrong?
Well, I didn't play the Rommel one because I don't own it, but I did do the Field Commander Napoleon. And my Napoleon didn't do very good either. So I had to stop teasing about Rommel. So
Right.
I think the scenarios are not set up properly. They are set up for you to fail, which is another episode in itself. But I think they're set up for you to, in a no-win situation, and you're supposed to barely squeak out a victory in the first turn, so that way you can progress through the game. Otherwise, you're going to mow it over.
Yeah, the trick on the solo games is you want to have a low winning percentage, but every time the guy or gal plays it, they have a little bit of hope, right? They say, wait a minute now. If I had just done this instead, then it bumps up a little bit. You get a little closer, and you go, aha! So I should be doing this, and then you just progress. And even if you beat the game, like the cool thing that Worthington did that I didn't even know they were going to do is that they added that log sheet. I don't know if you guys have seen the game, but
yeah,
they added a log sheet where you can track exactly what you did in each solo game so that you have something to shoot for the next time you play. So even if you beat it, you can try to beat it better, right?
Better score or whatever.
Yeah.
Right.
So that was a great job by them adding that.
Yeah, one thing I've noticed is a lot of times if you beat a solo game the first time, you have to play it at least one more time because you might find out it's harder than you actually think it is. You might have had just the best luck.
Yeah, the tricky part with a game like in Magnificent Style is you depend a lot on those die rolls. I mean, they all should average out over time, but the first time you play, maybe you rolled really well for a long time, and you just, that's what happened, and if you do it the next time, guess what? Average die rolls, you got a different score. So, but Zed's, like, Tony, you have his video on Zed's, right? You played Zed's, right?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. And I know, Dean, you have too, right? Or
not Zed's. No, what I wish
Zed's you didn't do, right? But Zed's was designed really only with the goal of, I wasn't even really worried about players winning the game. It was designed to create a story, and that people would have fun and laugh even when they were getting their butts kicked. That was the whole purpose of the game, was just to have a fun adventure story that it was designed
when the end is coming, right?
Yeah, I always wanted, my favorite games are always the ones that I would talk about for a couple of days afterwards, because they created some kind of story that I, would laugh with my friends. That actually happened a lot when we were playing miniatures. I don't know if you guys ever play historical miniatures, any of you, but we played tons of Napoleonic miniatures, and what happens is some of your units just seem to have amazing luck. And I had this one little German unit that was in the French army, the 2nd Nassau unit with green uniforms, and every time I rolled for them, they rolled the best freaking rolls. So it was just this long ongoing story about the 2nd Nassaus and how awesome they were and everything. So I wanted that kind of feeling in a board game too, where you'd get destroyed at Zed's, but you talk about that great stand at the bridge, that the dog made, Pickles made or something like that. So I don't know where I was going with that whole rant, but it was all designed for the story aspect of it, not necessarily
the story. We actually did an episode maybe a month or two ago about story and how much people get into their war games and create these stories with these units, these super units. That's, oh my gosh, I got to roll snake eyes for these guys to do something, and you do it, and then the next time it's just like, oh my gosh, these guys are amazing, and you get hooked to those units, and you create your own little story with it. Another good story game, if you guys ever played this War of Mine, have you tried that?
No, I haven't.
It's about surviving in a war-torn Eastern European city. That's what it's about, and it's all story. You will lose in that game, I would say 90% of the time, maybe 95% of the time, but you just generate this amazing story with it. And I don't want to play that all the time, but I do enjoy that kind of game. You like horror games as well as war games? I'm sorry? You like horror games as well as war games? Yes.
Nice segue.
Wow.
Dean,
this is
rough to you? Or
well,
to you,
the professional that he is.
That's that. They don't pay me the big bucks for nothing, man. They don't pay me the big bucks for nothing.
That's right.
So, there's horror. I'm a big horror gamer as well.
I love horror stuff.
I'm always looking out for new horror games that are going to be coming out.
Wow.
We don't know of any, do we?
Coincidence. I think this is where Dean comes in with his big.
Sorry.
Hello, Dean. Hello.
We left it open for you. Jeez.
I thought I'd gone deaf because you stopped talking. Sorry, Herman. Right.
Dean, that's what they call in technical terms a hanging curveball.
Talking of which, before we go into that, you've been designing games for about 10 years?
Yeah.
And one of your first games was a sports game.
Damn it! I was going to talk about that later. You stole my thunder. All right,
we'll talk about that later. We'll talk about that
later.
Sorry, Dean, I didn't hear you, Dean. I'm sorry. Could you bring that up later?
I'll bring that up later. Sorry, there's some communication. But what we'll talk about is this semi-secret project that's going on with you and GMT for a new horror-based game. Right. I believe it's called Beware the Shades.
No, the name has been changed.
That's it, right.
Yes.
So then I don't know what it's called.
It's called the Plum Island Horror.
Right.
Yeah, so Plum Island was correct.
I knew Plum Island was in there somewhere.
Yeah.
Why did you change the name?
There's a story behind that. I don't think I could say.
Okay, one of them. I'll talk to you privately, Herman. Right.
Yes.
Okay.
I'll tell you privately, and I'll tell you what. I'll tell you privately, and then if you think you can mention it, you can mention it on your next show or something.
I don't care.
Okay.
I've got no scruples, me. But okay. Fair enough, Herman. I've seen the sort of prototype of it, and it looks like pictures of it, and it looks like a block game. Is it a block game?
Well, that's under debate right now. So originally it was not.
You're worried now, Herman, aren't you? You're worried now.
I am worried because I'm wondering where you're getting this information from.
We have connections.
Apparently. Then the suggestion was made by Andy Lewis of GMT because I demoed it for him at PresCon in Charlottesville, Virginia last year. And he said, well, it would be better if the monsters, the horrors, were in blocks. Not hidden information blocks, just blocks, because that gives them presence.
Substance, yeah.
Right, substance, right. So I was just recently talking to the guys who are now with the development team, and we were talking about maybe not making it all blocks, just making the monsters blocks, maybe using standees, so we're still discussing all that. Okay, and is it sort of States of Siege game where because they're moving up the different roads, aren't they, towards the city? Well, I'll tell you, it's more of.
tell me what it's about and tell me what you can and what you're allowed to tell us?
Yeah, I can't go into too much detail because everything's in playtesting and development now, so I don't want to say something that it turns out it's not stays in the game, you know. So I got the idea first of all, Gene Billingsley's been a big fan of Zed's for many, many years. We used to talk about doing something like that all the way back 8 years ago when I saw him at Consum World Expo in Tempe. So we've talked on and off about how you got to do us a game like that. And he eventually said, you know, with this sudden popularity of co-op games, cooperative games, you know, maybe we could do something. So I designed this game. The initial inspiration came, if you ever played my Dunkirk game, it kind of came from that, where I said, well, this is interesting. If you substituted the Germans for some kind of horror force and you had to evacuate people to avoid a disaster, that's kind of fun. The fun part of Dunkirk, it's really not a war game strictly. It's kind of more of an evacuation management game. Like, how many people can you save, you know, off the beaches, as opposed to actually defeating the Germans? You're not going to defeat the Germans. It's how do you manage everything, right? So I thought in a horror setting,
their attack so you can get the most people off the island.
Right. So the way the game is set up is it's Plum Island. There's a whole fictional story behind it, though we are marketing it as that this actually happened. So I'm going to have Freedom of Information Act stories and all this other kind of stuff. Like, this actually happened, but it's been buried by the deep state and nobody knows about it, right? So yes, the horrors come out and they come down these 6 tracks, and you as a group have these varying factions that live on the island and function on the island. You have to work together to beat these things back, but just as importantly, you have to evacuate all the civilians that are on the island at the same time.
And I know you're going to send the 3 of us a copy so we can prototype it live on our show for everyone out there.
I will talk to Jason Carr and Ken Kuhn and see if we can get your copy. Sure.
Wow.
Yes. That's, you know, I don't know if you watched our tank duel with Mike Butticelli.
Great game.
We had the best time doing that with him, and we've been looking for another game that we can all get our hands on.
Well, and the interesting thing is that you know, this is obviously a different type of game for GMT, which is why, understandably, they want to be a little bit more careful with its development and marketing, and right, because I mean, you're marketing a game that is not a normal GMT audience game. However, there is combat in it, there's strategy, there's tactics, and the concept of cooperatively playing 4 asymmetric factions is a very popular thing in general gaming. I mean, it's one of my favorite things to do with my group of, well, I don't have a group right now since I moved to Tennessee, but when we were in New York, you know, I had a group of 4 guys, and we used to, the cooperative experiences was a relatively new one for me as a war gamer. It's usually one-on-one, right? 2-player games, that's it. Now, all of a sudden, the 4 of us are playing together, and we have to come up with a strategy and cooperate and figure out how to beat this game together. So that's what the game's about. It's 4 factions. It's the neighborhood watch. It's the town government. It's the Plum Island Research Laboratory, who are the main culprits in all this. They have social security. I'm an old
they got Social Security.
Security.
They got the benefit package.
The Jim Beam's kicking in.
And then the town's police force, which is called the constabulary. Nice British term, right? And so each has their strengths and weaknesses. Each has people that you can identify with, like Zeds, you know, that little personal identification. And they all, like I said, they all have strengths and weaknesses, and you have to kind of coordinate all this to defeat the horrors.
I think, you know, GMT is actually, you know, starting to branch out a little bit out of instead of just doing war games. And I think that's good. I think, you know, they drew in Mr. President, which is obviously not a war game, right?
I have some news on that one.
Oh,
more breaking news.
dun, 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 dun.
So
Wait a minute. Wait.
No, that's the
There we go. Breaking news, ladies and gentlemen. Breaking news.
So the developer is in the chat for Mr. President,
And that would
which is
be
Mike Berticelli. And over the past 3 weeks, we have been playtesting the Mr. President game. And I am currently, so we are, first of all, if you want to talk about a monster game, this is a monster game. We have been playing about 4 hours, and we're 10% of the way through the game. Now, some of it's because we're working through some of it. But
I'm sorry, you're play testing it, right?
Yeah. Mm-hmm. Yep.
Yeah. That always quadruples the amount of playing time.
Yeah. I can see it being a long-term, like it will be a monster solo game. There's no doubt. The board itself from end to end is 60 inches.
Woo.
So it is huge with Mr. President. What I am doing is I'm actually writing a report as I am the president, because that's what you play as a president. So after each session, I am writing a report of what I've done as I am the president. So I'm doing it as a first person. You have to deal with the Russians. You have to deal with the Chinese. It is by far, I'm having so much fun with it. And if you want to talk about a solo game that gives you that you have to do so much with so little, this is the game. I mean, it is literally absolutely phenomenal. I plan on doing a whole write-up. So it's 4 turns. Each turn is a year, and each year is kind of separated into 4 quarters. And I mean, we're not even through the first quarter yet. But what so we have it on Tabletop Simulator, and if it's anything close, the quality is going to be phenomenal. It uses cards, so that's another thing I like about solo games is when they do use cards. So Herman, right up there with you, he's using it. He created a flip book, so you can just use the flip book, and as you play the game, you use the flip book to learn and also to play it. So it makes it really easy.
Oh, very cool.
So some of the papers I've got here are some of my reports that I've been writing up as I get finished. So I have found that actually writing it in hand, I get a little bit more creative when I'm doing that. So, but yeah, that's so I am play testing that, and about once if not twice a week, we're doing about an hour or two. And I'll tell you what, it's going to be a massive game. It's going to be an easy game to play, but a hard game to do good. If you get what I'm saying. So.
Right. Oh, that sounds awesome.
So what I'm understanding is Mike Butticelli gets together with us. He cherry picks you away. You disappear for a couple weeks, and then you come back with some news. Oh, I get it. Okay.
See, the thing is, he didn't pick me because the last time I played one of his games, I got blown up twice. He's not going to pick me.
I also did take him out too. I also took him out in the game, so he kind of had it. But no, it just came up. I was like, I really want to play this game. So one of the real reasons why I want to play it is Herman. I don't know if you know, but I'm a government and history high school teacher, and I'm looking for, so I'm looking for ways to implement games into my classroom, and I actually talked to my boss about this, and he's like, "Oh yeah, we'll buy some games," and because I figured out just by playing so far, I figured out how to make it a co-op game for classroom. So there's a president and there's 4 advisors. Now the advisors in the solo game will help you with certain things, and you can give those traits to like a 5-team member. But ultimately, the person who is the president makes the decision, but he or she will look to their staff to help out. And I mean, you have to deal with more than what you can. Like, I am dealing with mass shootings. I I think Trump has a better approval rating than I do right now, so that's part of it. So, I mean, it's one of those things. He said he's played it, and his approval rating, there's like several, as all good solitaire games, there's multiple ways to lose and only one way to win.
Right.
So, if your approval rating gets too low, you get kicked out of office. So you lose the game. But what I do love about it, and we kind of talked about it, it's very apolitical. So there's nothing like that would be one-sided or the other.
Right. And that's important now. Yes.
Yeah.
I agree. Yeah.
So like I had to pass a gun legislation bill. Well, it doesn't tell you what's in the bill, and you randomly roll to figure out if it's a great bill, a good bill, or a horrible bill. And then you as a president have to decide whether to veto it or sign it. And you can, so there's some other issues that go on with the game that are going on in the background. Like, well, I know this is going to happen if I don't pass it, but if I pass it, I'm going to lose this, so there's a lot of really good decisions. So,
and it's funny, the fact that the thing you said about the win-loss condition is exactly what it's like for Plum Island too, is that there's 4 ways to lose the game, and you lose as a group, right?
Yeah.
Right. And you win by preventing loss. So, and that's a key for the cooperative part of it, and obviously for Mr. President too, is that there's so many different fires you're trying to put out that each one of them could lose the game for you. That's the tension in it all, right? And the coordination out there. Yeah.
Yeah. It will be a game I have to take notes as I'm playing to remember I got to take care of this, because you could forget about something and then all of a sudden it just there's nothing you can do about it anymore.
Right.
And you might as well start over. So it's one of those games that probably having some notes or a pad of paper around just to remind yourself, okay, so I got to take care of the terror organizations and stuff like that. So
I think that's great for like a classroom application. That's fantastic. Yeah, that's a great idea. I have to tell you something. The greatest compliment I ever got for any one of my games was at Origins a few years ago. A teacher came running after me, and he said, "I have to tell you that the player notes, the player book for At Any Cost is so good that we use it in the classroom to teach Franco-Prussian War history." To this day, there is nothing that anybody's ever said to me about any of my games that meant more than that. That was just fantastic. So the whole classroom military history or any history connection is so important. I think it's great.
Well, and that I kind of want to lead in another question is, do you choose your topics on what you're interested in for your games, or
Yes.
Okay, so whatever you're interested, that's how you choose your topic.
Right, and that's my number one piece of advice to any game designer is design what you love. Don't go and design a bulge game because you think a bulge game is going to sell. If you don't really give a crap about the bulge or anything else like that.
There aren't many of those about, are there? So, there aren't many bulge games about, so we could do with them.
Yeah. There's been about 5 in the last week or something like that.
But it's a popular subject. But you're quite right. Do what you love, not do what you do.
Because if your heart's not in and you don't know the subject matter, and you're not interested in really squeezing every bit of information and entertainment out of this subject matter, then don't even design it. Don't bother, because then you're just going to throw out some piece of crap, Right. And that's not the way you should design.
Yeah,
so to answer your question, I picked subjects that I'm already interested in. Interestingly enough, Stonewall's Sword, I designed that. I knew nothing about Cedar Mountain, the Battle of Cedar Mountain. Nothing. Zero. Barely had heard of it. And I happened to subscribe to, oh my God, I forgot his name now, a gentleman who runs Obscure Battles website. And he did a feature, Obscure Battles, on Cedar Mountain. And I found it so fascinating that I went and researched and said, this would make a great game. So, I mean, you have to have that interest in the subject matter. And for some reason, Franco-Prussian War just kind of lit a fire with me. It's something about the combination of Napoleonic uniforms and almost World War I technology. To me, that just fascinates me, that this is this period of European military history that's this clash like that.
Is that kind of the running the cavalry charges into like a mass field of fire type deal? Is that kind of that?
Well, they still believe, they still held on to those big cuirassier charges and all that. Von Bredow's Death Ride is the most famous one of that, where 600 Prussian cuirassier charged the French artillery. A lot of people don't know that charge was actually successful because von Bredow found a fold in the ground where he could approach the guns, actually covered for part of the way, and then he kind of popped out, overran the guns, but then he got countercharged by French cavalry. So, yeah, it is a fascinating period of history, and it's not as lopsided. I guess the main point is, and I think that's why a lot of French people like that game, a lot of French gamers, is that because the French army was not that bad. They get shortchanged in a lot of Franco-Prussian War games. They just, especially on the strategic level, they just say, all right, well, the French are all rated 2s and all the Prussians are rated 10s, and we're just going to have a game on that. But it goes a lot deeper than that. It goes into the tactics and mostly the leadership.
And your games, even that one at any cost, it's very solo friendly. And you've made a lot of solo games or solitaire games. Is that foremost in your mind when you design a game, or is it something that you put in afterwards, or do you always go ahead and design a solo game? I know you're heavy into solitaire games.
I'm not exactly sure. It might be because Alan Emmerich helped get me my start in designing, and at that time, that's what they were doing. They were doing that States of Siege thing. I mean, Dawn of the Zeds is a States of Siege game with just a lot of extra chrome and stuff. So, and I think as a designer, and I'm sure other designers who are in the chat or listening will that designing a good solitaire game is a challenge. I mean,
yeah, sure.
John Butterfield's done a fantastic job doing that. It's a challenge as a designer to do it and do it intelligently or competitively, I guess.
Yeah. But you do it well. But are you want to be known more as a solitaire designer or just a designer?
No, just a designer's fine.
Because you've got lots of solitaire games, which I'm pleased about. I mean, like Invasion and
I actually never counted up how many of mine are solitaire versus 2-player or multiplayer.
There's quite a few.
Is it 50-50, something like that? I don't know.
I think from just kind of knowing what you have, just in general, I think it's about 50-50.
You reckon? Well, that's fair enough then. Yeah, no, it's good. It's good for me.
I think especially for wargamers, I think wargamers have a hard time finding opponents, don't you think? I mean,
at this time, well, funny you should say that. Our mate Stigler did a rant on his called it a rant. It wasn't really a rant about why we shouldn't be playing solitaire. We should be playing with other people, not face to face because we can't. But there's Vassal and there's this. I'm not sure. I think his whole summing up, he was saying it's much better to play with somebody like we did with Tank Duel and have a cracking time and interacting with each other rather than sitting there playing solo. And he wasn't having to go at solitaire games. He was having to go at people that play two-handed. Or having to go is the wrong word, really. He was putting his view across. I don't know if you've seen the video.
I mean, don't you think most gamers would prefer to play with other people?
Sure. Yeah.
And it's just not possible for many people.
But he's saying, let's all play Vassal.
Well, for me, Vassal, I to this day have not figured out Vassal.
I can't either. Don't worry about it.
I've tried. I can't. I have to say that Tabletop Simulator I find a lot more user friendly. And the cool thing about Tabletop Simulator is, and David Thompson is the one who turned me on to this idea of designers. I don't even build a physical kit now. I build a TTS kit.
That's what he does. Yeah.
And when he first told me that, I go, I'm an idiot. I don't know how to do that. And then I started doing it. I go, wait, this is really cool. So that is actually the first level now of my playtesting is I build a kit on Tabletop Simulator, and you could play it solitaire. You could still do it yourself, but then I can invite my friends in from New York or wherever and say, here, let's play this thing. And we're testing a game now on there, and it's working out great.
And you don't have to cut out counters and make them.
I know. See, that's the thing. You would think Oh, well, it's a pain in the ass to you have to snip, right? And you know what it is, right? All the snipping.
Round your counters.
But once you build that module, the thing is, changing it is easy.
Yeah.
Right? So back when you had to do a physical kit, all of a sudden you have to throw out all the counters and redo them and do the map. And here you're just loading up a new file and everything changes. It's fantastic. But
Hey,
most
Curtis,
The thing about Tabletop
Curtis.
Simulator is if you're losing, you got to throw the table in the air.
you got to flip the table. Yeah.
So,
Hey,
Herman,
there's a
Chris-
question in the chat, and I was actually going to ask you this, so I want to get to this before it goes away. It is from Chris. He says, "What game caused you the most problems during the design process?" I find designing and listening to the design philosophies and what goes into it very, very interesting. So I was going to ask you this question anyway. So, what was the game that caused you the most problems to design?
Oh, that's kind of cool question. I haven't even thought. Boy, you threw one at me that I wasn't.
That's Chris for you. He does
Yeah, Chris will
good
do that
job,
to you.
Chris. We got you stumped a Herminator. Great job.
I would have to say at any cost. Here's the problem with most of the big war games that I still have a problem today with, and it kind of goes to what we were just talking about. Designing them is fine. Playtesting them is a pain in the, in the ass. At any cost. How many scenarios do I have in that game? I have 4 scenarios, I think. Maybe more. I forget. But playtesting all of that, the big war games are a problem. And the thing is, I don't want to put out anything. There's a lot of underdeveloped games that hit the market, and they let the public.
Yeah.
They let the public playtest it.
Yeah, it's like playtest in a box, but it's supposed to be the finished product.
Yeah.
Exactly. Right. And then the errata comes out and they go, all right, we'll fix this, we'll fix that. I mean, I don't want to do that, but play testing a war game, a big war game, a crunchy war game like that, enough times that you're sure. And I can tell you that was the toughest one now that I think about it, because people were asking me questions on Board Game Geek that never came up in playtesting. And I had to tell them that. I said, wow, that's kind of cool. That was never done in playtesting.
Right.
And it's really hard to account for every variable for each scenario. Now, even in most, I got to tell you, most Fearful Sacrifice has 13 scenarios in it. Some of them are small. They're not a big problem. But some of them are like the entire first day of Gettysburg, the entire second day of Gettysburg. Then there's the all 3 days of Gettysburg. The only reason that's not the more difficult one is because I got probably the best development team anybody could ever have working on that. And that's Steve Pointinger, Claude Whalen, Zeke Conover, and Fred Manzo. Those guys played that game every day for a year.
Yeah.
And it was just constant emails back and forth. I mean, you know how it goes, right? With Mr. President, even you have to have a team that's willing to play that stupid game 100 times and come back and forth. And even with a Most Fearful Sacrifice, I haven't even played the game. I can't even tell you the last time I actually played it, because they were playing it, sending me emails. I was responding and redesigning things and tweaking things and sending it back to them, and they were playing it, right? And they told me whether it worked or not.
Right.
So,
right.
So this last game isn't the most difficult one because I had that team to work with. At any cost, I didn't really have a team to work with. It was basically Fred and myself playing the game, and then a couple guys down at the club. But most guys down at the club are willing to play the game once. They're not willing to play it 15 times.
Right.
So when you bring it down the third time, they're looking at you going, no,
we want to play something else.
Something like that,
Hey, guys, I don't mean to interrupt you, but guys, keep your questions. We're going to open up questions at 5:30 and a half an hour. We still got some stuff we want to talk with Herman about, and I don't want to miss your guys' questions. So if you have any questions, wait another half hour. We're going to open it up to the chat, and then you guys can just ask questions to Herman yourself. So I didn't want to miss anybody, but go ahead.
That's a good idea. And the other, sorry, Herman, do you mind being called, you and Fred, the dream team?
Yeah. Well, yeah, I mean, it's fine.
It's great, isn't it? No, it's great. Yeah. Sorry, I just had to say that. That's Stan's fault, isn't it?
Yeah, Fred's been a good friend of mine for a few years. He's a good developer. Now it's funny because I think every designer out there now, maybe Mike has one or David Thompson has one. You know, it's one guy that you go to first who doesn't fall into the trap of knowing you so well that he doesn't recognize fault. So Fred's like that. Fred can take a design of mine, play it, and then do something that, you know, to try to break it.
Yeah, and that's what
he just did it to me last week. We're designing. I'm working on a World War I game, Western Front for Worthington, with a brand new system. And Fred kept doing this one thing, and I'm going, "What are you doing?" He goes, "Well, it says I can do it. I'm going to do this." And I'm going, "But I didn't want it to work that way, you know." So
stop doing that.
Yeah.
His standard joke is that every time he tries something, I always make a rule that he can't do that anymore. So, but yeah,
he's gonna have his own section in the rule book. You cannot do this, Fred.
But that's what you want, isn't it?
You need a guy to be the devil's advocate like that, right? The guy who knows enough about your designs, but also will do that one thing to go, you know, to make you think deeper. And so yeah, us calling, you know, being the dream team. That's great.
That's great. That's great.
You got more questions, Ruff? I'm sure you do.
Well, it's just that you're talking about new. Can I talk about some upcoming games that you may be having, or can't I?
I'm still trying to figure out where he's getting this weird information from.
I'll tell you what, as well, you were asked.
Are you reading my computer or something?
Yeah, I'm hacked in there. You were asked, like you get asked here, and you get asked to do blogs, and you get interviewed and that sort of thing, and you were asked what your favorite game is, and on one of these, and I was expecting, you know, a war game. No, what did you come up with? Blackstone Fortress.
Yeah.
Warhammer. Your favorite game? Is it still your favorite game?
It was my favorite game at that time.
And yeah, because you like miniatures. It's a miniatures game, isn't it? Of course.
Blackstone Fortress is kind of a space dungeon crawl, I guess.
But it's a Warhammer themed.
Look, I admit it. I'm a big Warhammer fan. I don't like the Warhammer 40K miniature game, but I'll tell you now, I have spent thousands of hours playing Sanctus Reach, which is a Warhammer 40K computer game.
Right. Oh, I was going to ask you, do you paint your own minis then?
I used to get up at 4 o'clock in the morning back in the day and paint before I went to work. I don't do it anymore, but I do. Oh. I still have, I don't know if you could see that
thing on the wall
right there has whatever's left of my painted miniatures. It's on a wall in a case. Yeah.
But you also
sell them because of my ex-wife, so I needed the money.
Tell me about it. Anyway, Summoner's War was another one of your favorites.
Oh, I love Summoner Wars. And I think I just mentioned this on the other podcast, not to be named.
It's all right. Yeah.
You know, I've only had to mute one guest so far.
Summoner Wars is. I challenge any war game, any grognard, any hardcore war gamer to play that game with me and not tell me it's a war game. It is basically it's a miniatures card game of two armies fighting each other on a tactical board using dice rolls and card play, and I think it's fantastic.
Yeah,
we've had this debate probably on 6 of our shows so far.
Yeah,
we haven't come up with a definition yet. What is?
Oh no! Don't tell me what is a war game.
What is a definition of a war game? We've gone through this. We've gone back and forth with the chat on what classifies as a war game. I mean, you know what won War Game of the Year?
Yes, I do know. I do know. And I played that game at PresCon, and I was about it. it's one of those. God, that's more of a role playing game, really. But I guess a war game could be a role playing game. Again, you know, you're getting into this whole debate about.
Yeah, I always remember. I think it was Marco Omnigamer saying a war game. If you play a game you think it's a war game, it's a war game.
Right. It's like pornography, right? The famous judge said, I don't know how to define pornography, but I know it when I see it. And you know what a war gamer is when you see it.
You see, I'd watch I'd maybe look at what pornography you're looking at, and I might go, it's all, Talking about,
for me, I just, Dan just had this whole segment about what is a war game with Hardwolf. And for me, it's conflict simulation. Whatever that conflict simulation is, whether it's aliens against space marines or a horror game or a dungeon crawl
or wives,
right? If it's got strategy and tactics and combat and decision making, to me, it's a war game. Is it a historical war game? Not necessarily. Historical war game is a subset of that, right? Does it have hex encounters? That's another subset of a war game, right? It's a hex encounter game.
Yeah, and I love playing other games, and we did a sort of thing in the chat a few weeks ago, and most war gamers play other games. What are they thinking about? There you go.
You have to. My most played game, and I was thinking about this the other day because I had a feeling you guys were going to ask me this, and I was thinking about it. And I still have the game in my cabinet back there. My most played game from the 1990s to current, including wargamers and family members, is Robo Rally.
I've never heard of that.
Robo Rally, because Robo Rally makes us laugh. We laugh from the beginning and we laugh till the end. And that's why that game is the most played game.
But that inspired me to do another segment of the show called Not a War Game Wednesday, where I'm going to every so often put out.
I saw that. Yes,
I'm getting thumbs down already. But there you go. I don't mind. No, but there you go. But yeah.
Look, can I say this real fast? Just, As a war game designer, okay, one thing I learned from going to Origins and playing other games, you need to learn mechanics that are used in other games. Okay, there are dungeon crawls that I play, Sword and Sorcery or Descent and the rest of these, or Blackstone Fortress, Summoner War. You need to play other games because there's mechanics that are being used in other games that can be like Gloomhaven, definitely. You will learn mechanic. You won't. I'm not talking about copying the mechanic exactly, but it inspires you to think of a different way to do things.
Yeah, and that's a good thing.
You might use a variation of that mechanic.
Absolutely.
So, for example, in Plum Island Horror, I use a mechanic called the follow mechanic, which I learned playing Tiny Epic Galaxies. And the brilliance of the follow mechanic is that it keeps everybody involved in the game constantly, right? So in Plum Island Horror, I take my turn, and then when my turn is over, you go around the table and say, Dean, do you want to take a turn? You do? Then you can go do something. But if you go do something, you're going to have to pull the next card. And if it says event, something horrible is going to happen.
Yeah.
And the rest of the guys can't go, all right? So what that does is that opens up a debate then of like, Dean, don't go because Kurt wants to go. Yeah. So if you pull a bad card, then Kurt's not going to be able to go.
And we'll all blame him, and that'll be fun.
So the follow mechanic is a mechanic I learned playing Tiny Epic Galaxies.
And that's where you can follow what was happened if you have the die roll. You can follow it, can't you, or something? I can't remember.
Right, you can do what the person that just did the action. You can do the same action going around.
Yeah.
So what that does is that keeps you from getting off the table and going to eat something or get a drink while everybody else is going. You have to pay attention during everybody's turn to see what they're doing.
Because it might, you might be able to sort of get an advantage. But talking about new games, I did read as well that you typically sort of develop 4 to 8 games at a time. 4 to 8 games at a time. Is that right, Herman?
Well, I broke my. I was saying that I broke my own rule because I don't like to work on more than 2 games at a time. And now because of I just retired at the end of 2019, So now I'm sitting here and I have like 4 or 5 games I'm working on simultaneously. That's a bad policy.
But you're doing it. Can I talk about some that may or may not be okay?
Sure, of course.
Coming out in Nuts Publishing, Assault on Zoltar.
How did you find out about that?
Don't ask how I find them.
Damn!
Don't ask how I find them.
Wait! I gotta get a screenshot of that face. Hang on, Herman. Hang on. Wait a second. I gotta get a screenshot of his face. Say it again, Rob.
Facebook page.
It's a co-op and solo game. Tell us more about that one, please.
There's only 3 people that even know about that game.
4 people.
A lot more than that now.
Nilly!
You want to talk about that, or shall I carry on?
This man's got connections. All right, so
we're just a bunch of yahoos.
Give us a quick synopsis, and I'll move on to the next one.
So, God damn it! I don't even know how you did that. So Arnaud from Nuts Publishing reached out to me on Facebook, and he said, "You want to do something for us one day?" And I go, "I never say no." But I said, "Of course. Yeah, what do you got in mind?" He goes, "We want a cooperative war game, a science fiction cooperative war game. In other words, so a war game, cooperative games we were just discussing, but I don't know if there are any. I might be forgetting some, but anyway, a cooperative war game where we're all playing on the same side in a war game setting. We lose together, win together, and all that." So I said, "Fine." So I came up with this game called Assault on Zoltar, and it's each of you is a company of mercenary space dudes with also, and it's got a war game army. It's got tanks but science fiction-y, of course. Tanks and troops and all that kind of. And they all do weird things. And I'll tell you something else about this game. And you play together. So it's got tiles. So each player sits in front of one tile. They enter the board, and all the aliens are on an opposite tile. So you could play up to 4 guys. You could have 4 tiles this way, and then 4 alien tiles behind it. And the aliens work on a activation card system, an AI. So you're playing together. You have to achieve a certain goal, and you win or lose together. So I came up with there's a game that I played called Space Cadets Away Missions, and they have this one mechanic called the Overkill Mechanic, which is a brilliant mechanic. And what that says is, if you score 1 success against an enemy, you'll kill it. If you score 2 successes or 3 successes, most games just say, well, that's it, right? You just overkilled them or whatever. Well, in this game, overkill triggers other abilities. So the weapon you have, its overkill ability might be you can push all the aliens away 1 space. Your personal overkill might be you gain 1 health. So this whole concept of if you roll really super well, you get other bonuses. So I have actually incorporated that into the game where your company has a certain tank, a certain artillery piece, and then it has an overkill attack bonus and an overkill defense bonus that ties into the science fiction theme of whatever weaponry they have.
Sounds great.
Right. So you might have, I don't know, microwave artillery that does an extra hit if you get a hit, or it might be some weird gas that pushes people away or whatever, Yeah. So anyway, that's the idea of it, is that, and I was actually just working on that earlier today.
Oh, and another one.
How did you?
And then another one.
After this.
What I'll do is say it, and then if you can't mention it, I'll just say another one from Worthington Publishing coming out, based on the Magnificent Style. Can I mention that one?
Well,
The King's Wrath.
Yeah, I actually just changed it to the Queen's Wrath. I'm trying to be politically correct. Yes.
Breaking news!
Hold on a minute. Hold on.
Well, you're supposed to share that with us, man. You can't be hiding stuff.
How did you?
It's another. So
I need to launch an investigation on my security.
But another game in the style of the Magnificent Style.
My McAfee is failing me badly.
Do you know want to say anything about that one?
Yes. So the follow-up to In Magnificent Style, I suggested would be maybe a fantasy setting, a Game of Thrones type of setting.
Another
Right?
solitaire game, yeah.
Cool.
Right. So, you have a situation where the Queen's Wrath is actually her personal guard, and she sends them out to attack this monstrous force, whatever, orcs, whatever. Well, they won't be orcs, believe me, but something like that. And they've either kidnapped her father, or they're going to poison the water, or they're going to open a portal to hell, or they're going to set off a huge explosion. Something they're going to do something that you have to cover that ground like you do in Magnificent Style and do something in a certain amount of time.
All I can say is, Herman, is if you don't want me to release other information which I've got on here, which isn't.
I can't even imagine what's left. Maybe you know what I'm going to plan that I haven't thought of yet.
I've got games you haven't even thought of on here, and if you want and some information you might not want me to release, unless I do that, I want you to send me a copy of each game I'm mentioning here as your ransom. Right.
We're ransom.
I'm fascinated. I want to hear your whole list.
No, don't give it away, Ruff. Don't give it away. We'll hold our secrets till next week. We won't be here.
Well, just going to say you're doing a reskinning of the first edition of Dawn of the Zeds, aren't you?
Nobody knows about that.
The Valiant 7.
Kurt is very proud of you right now.
I am.
He brought it today. He brought it today.
That's the man. Wait.
All right. The story
down there. Ross?
The story with that is I've always wanted to go back to the original Dawn of the Zeds before it became this big boxed extravaganza thing.
Can I just say you weren't too happy with the third edition?
Well, I can't say that I'm not happy with it. I had nothing to do with the third edition other than it is the first and second edition and the expansion, and then Alan and his crew did the co-op version. I had nothing to do with the co-op version. So yes, I had nothing to do with the final third version other than it's the first two together, right? But I've always wanted to go back to the simpler days of the second edition or so. When it was a little more accessible, didn't have 5 rule books, that kind of thing.
Yeah,
that annoys me. But.
That's good. I'm hoping everybody's appreciating this.
I was going to change the theme to a Western theme because I watched the Magnificent Seven and I was like, oh my God, this would make a great.
I was going to say it's based on the Magnificent Seven, but not anymore.
No, it will be.
Right, so cowboy theme.
Right.
Lovely.
Yeah, where the Magnificent Seven are. You were rough. It's now a verb.
So, another one.
Go ahead.
Flying Pig. It's another in the series of a game I've got up there.
Crowbar.
Yeah. The Sacred Way.
Verdun. I was actually.
Oh yes, you were mentioning the First World War thing. Yes.
The only I got off the Verdun thing only because there's been a bunch of games coming out lately on Verdun, right? And the other thing is, Mark said that there's no Americans at Verdun, so he wants Americans in it.
Oh, okay. So that's a
that one's iffy. That one's iffy. Verdun, for me personally, is a subject I'd like to do one day.
But you're also bringing out another in the series, Attack of the 50-Foot Colossi and all that, aren't you?
You know it is. Just give it up. It'll be easier, Herman. It'll be easier to just give in and just go.
Hold on.
You are partially correct.
Right.
We've just been speaking about potentially doing a deluxe Invaders from Dimension X boxed set where that has all the games in it, and then we would include the 4th edition in that.
Right. Okay.
That would be called Planet of the Moss Men.
Yeah, I said that. Yeah, I got that.
Oh, you got that? Oh, I didn't hear that. Okay. Well, you got everything.
One more.
There is one more? I don't even know about one more. Go ahead.
You do a sort of rehash of the game. The evacuation. Second World War one.
Dunkirk.
Miracle at Dunkirk.
Yeah, Miracle at Dunkirk. Yes, that's been in the hopper with Legion Games for a while. So
I want that one. I want that game.
Yeah, I want them all. I want them all, Herman.
That one was on its way. It got derailed for a while. I went on to other things, and it kind of got left to the side. Then Kim Kanger contacted me earlier in the year and said, "Hey, can we get this going again? Maybe you could rework it a little bit." So I'm actually in the process of reworking it a bit.
All right.
But it's going to happen. I promise that it's going to get done by the end of the year.
Excellent. You'll be pleased to know.
It's going to have. By the way, it's going to have a naval aspect to it. So remember, Spoiled Victory kind of abstracted. You just move. So this is actually going to have ships in it that you have to move over to the evacuation beaches and get guys off and carry them back to Dover and all that.
Looking forward to that one. And you'll be pleased to know, Herman, that's all the dirt I got on you.
Thank God, because I don't even know what else is out there. How did you? We need to talk, man.
We'll talk. There's a ransom to be paid here. There's a ransom to be paid.
Thanks for taking that in the
spirit.
I
have to say that I am actually shocked that you have all this information.
No, but and thank you for taking it in the spirit it was delivered. So
it's only gaming. It's gaming. I mean,
I'll call you out. And,
just the look on his face is priceless.
Yeah.
Priceless.
The assault on Zoltar thing really got me because I know that very good to know about
red.
That.
Just completely red in like 1 second. Like, oh my God, somebody
can disconnect from your computer now.
Yes.
There we go. Oh.
I got the rough swordsman bots in my computer.
It's out there.
Hey, I want to spend just a few minutes. I know you, Herman, you get on a lot of podcasts, a lot of interviews, and you talk wargaming nonstop. People just zapping you question after question about wargaming, wargame design, and this and that and the other thing. But nobody but our channel is going to take time to find out about you. You, the person.
Right.
What do you like? What about you out there? We don't care about war games or designs or anything like that for a little bit. I hear you're a big baseball guy. How many people in the world know that Mr. Hermann Luttmann is a big baseball fan?
Oh, Tony knows.
We know, but I mean, nobody else
baseball
out there.
Yes. So, yeah, I've been, I've always been a baseball fan. Now that I think about it, I've even been to the Mayor's Trophy game in 1966 or something like that. Come on now, Dean. You have to learn something about baseball here, okay?
Well, we call it rounders in the UK. So,
I did mention status quo before. That was a ball I threw in your coat. Yes.
Well, I was actually going to mention status quo here a little bit.
Status.
Who's your baseball team out there? Do you follow one team? You just follow everyone?
I've been a Mets fan my entire life.
Mets fan. Well, okay. Well, I can forgive you for that.
Yeah, that would make sense.
Yeah, that's no
and I'm in Knoxville, Tennessee right now, and we don't have a team. We have a minor league team, the Smokies, which is a lot of fun to watch. So they tell me here that they're Atlanta Braves fans.
Mm-hmm.
Or Cincinnati Reds fans.
South of the Mason-Dixon plan.
Yeah. And so my Kurt, you'll appreciate this. My claim to fame is that I was at Game 7 in 1986, Game 7 of the World Series.
Oh, wow. Nice. Yeah, wow. That's impressive. I know we talked before we got online. There is a huge sports game community out there. I know that you talked with Dan for just a second about it. There's actually, and I know I told you this beforehand, I own 18 different baseball sports sim games. And I know that you actually designed one.
I did.
Back in the day.
Back in my VPG days, I did. That's actually my run to the litter as far as game designing. It was a game called
High and Tight.
High and Tight.
Yeah.
Right. And it was a little too abstract. Okay. I didn't want to do a Stratomatic clone. or at APA clone or any of the clones, So I tried to think outside the box a little bit about taking baseball is all about percentages, right? You can take ERAs and batting averages and break them down into basic percentages. And that's kind of what I did with cards and all that. It didn't, I don't know. Sports games by war game companies are tough sells. Stratomatic does well, I would imagine. I guess APA still does well. I don't know. But yeah, I did try to I may do another baseball game. I don't know who would publish it, but I have notes for another one.
We talked about this. GMT is expanding out now. They've done Mr. President. They're doing a horror game.
Would tell you, if Gene came to me,
start into sports sim gaming. Think about it, Herman. You could get back in the sports game sim community with your next game. What do you think?
If Gene came to me and said, we need a baseball game for you, I would drop everything and do it instantly.
Okay. Can tell Gene, come on next week's show. We don't have anyone scheduled right now, but tell him to come on our show. We'll talk to him.
Which of them is your favorite, by the way? Or do you have a favorite?
Right now, my favorite is called Fall Classic. Inside Pitch is really good. Payoff Pitch is really good. Pine Tar Baseball is really good. None of the big boys, to be honest, everyone knows Stratomatic and they know APA, probably know Status Pro a little bit, but to me, there's so many other good ones out there.
When we were in the wargaming group back in the 90s, we had sports leagues as well, and we played with Status Pro, right? The Avalon Hill baseball and football game. My favorite baseball game of all time was Pursue the Pennant, which is now Dynasty Baseball.
It's turned into Dynasty League, and also an offshoot of that, which is Triple Play Baseball.
Yep.
That one, Dean, to get results on that one, you needed to roll 3 D10s.
3 D10s, right. It's still that way.
1 to 1,000.
1 to 1,000. 0 to 499 off the batter's card, 500 to 999 off the pitcher's card.
And the game came with in the box. They had different outfield walls for all the stadiums.
Yes,
and
every stadium had its own
wall into the box and play inside the box with different walls for all the different stadiums. That was the ultimate baseball game for me. But
it's still very, very good. It's still very, very good.
My most played PC game right now is a baseball game. I've been playing it for about 10 years. I play it every day. I use it's a fictional league. It's called Baseball Mogul. I get upgrades every year, and I have a fictional team that I just keep running, bring guys up from the minors. I love it.
Yes. Great. Baseball Mogul, have you tried Out of the Park?
I have tried Out of the Park. Baseball Mogul has that extra little graphic.
You get to actually do pitch by pitch and see where the pitch comes in.
Yes. Yes, I do the one pitch mode, so you just get that decisive pitch for the at-bat, and you can actually watch the guys swing and you watch the ball fly, and to me, that's the extra little something I want.
Isn't this more fun than talking war game all the time?
All right, so back to our regular scheduled programming.
Rob Schwartzman is
falling asleep.
100% war game, and I love that about him. Okay,
I'm not 100%.
All right, he's 95%, right?
Yeah.
But I mean, most people play war games. They play other things. They're interested in other things, and I mean, let's be honest. Herman has a life outside of game design. He has a life. He also likes the rock band that rough swordsman's dressed like.
Status Pro.
What's it called?
Status Pro.
Status Quo. There you go. How many people have actually talked to you about baseball and status quo in the last 5 years, Herman? Just us, right?
That's it.
Yeah.
Not even close.
Okay.
Joking apart, I know it's a passion of Herman's and of yours, Jester, and Tony likes it a bit, so I'm quite prepared. My only concern was you said you were going to answer questions at half the past.
It's 5:29. We still got a minute, so they all can just wait.
An hour and a half went fast.
Wait. You also just moved to Tennessee.
It always does.
Man.
You just moved to Tennessee.
Yeah.
We talked offline. Some of my family lives in Tennessee. Tony's family lives in Tennessee. You done any fishing up there in the mountains? Great Smoky Mountain fishing?
No, oh boy, the Smoky Mountains are gorgeous. Oh my Lord. This whole area is beautiful. I'm in Knoxville, so I'm on the eastern side. So it's funny because you can see that this is the Tennessee flag. So the 3 stars are each of the 3 regions of Tennessee. There's Western Tennessee, Central Tennessee, and Eastern Tennessee. That's Memphis, Nashville, and Knoxville. So it's very interesting. It's one thing I learned. So I lived in Long Island my entire life. Coming down here, it's a different culture. The people are so nice. And if you want to know about, I don't want to get into Civil War type stuff, but the state identity down here, for example, you'll see this flag on people's front lawns, on their license plates, in front of buildings. They identify with the Tennessee flag. New Yorkers, I can tell you, most New Yorkers, 95% don't even know what the New York flag looks like.
No.
So there's that state identity, which is really bonding, I think, here. And I appreciate that. And I mean, the food's great. The people are great. It's so much cheaper. I'll make people sick in New York and California when they find out how much less it costs to live here.
California.
I'm talking significantly.
Yeah.
Yes.
So you're retired from your other job now, right?
Right. I retired at the end of 2019. We moved down here. Nancy is a retired New York State teacher. If you want a little more trivia, Nancy Nancy's actually my high school sweetheart. I met her when I was 18 and she was 15. We dated through college. We broke up and then we got back together 30 years later.
Wow, that is so cool.
We have 5 kids between the 2 of us, not with each other.
Right. They just had that exact same thing that just happened with you on the news last night down here. There was a couple that were high school sweethearts, and then they went their own way, and then they had a daughter, which they gave up for adoption. So the girl wanted to find her parents now that she's an adult, 30 or 40. So she found her parents, and they all got together. And the man was single, and the lady was single. So they started talking and getting back, just conversing again. And they ended up getting married after all that because of their daughter. I thought that was just the coolest thing. So it sounds like what had happened with you.
Yeah.
It just, I know this is going to sound corny to a lot of people, but there's times in your life you just find I knew when she came to the door, she was actually dating a friend of my brother's, and I happened to answer the door when she walked up, and I knew at that instant it was like that. It was like that's her.
Yeah, and the same with me, Herman. But my second wife, I knew that the moment she walked into a wall when she was looking at me, I knew. That's true. That's true. That's a true story. I knew she was she was the one for me.
Yeah, I know it sounds corny and people don't believe that, but in my case, I knew it right. It was like, bang, that's it,
Yeah.
So, I wanted to take a little bit of time just to talk about life and stuff because I'm sure you get hammered time after time after time with war game questions, design game questions, and it should be about you and your life and everything. It shouldn't just be war game. That's all we care about. You once we need another war game. It should be about everything.
We don't ask him anymore. We're just going to ask Ruff. That's all.
Yeah,
I was just going to say he's probably got the inside scoop on all that anyway.
That was good. That was fun. I'm glad they caught you out, Herman. In a nice way.
That was really good.
You got
we got about actually less than half an hour, but we will open it up now for more war game questions or baseball questions or whatever you want to ask Herman about. Herman, before we get to war game questions, favorite meal? What's your favorite meal?
My favorite meal?
Meal, right.
It's a sauerbraten.
You can tell a lot about a person by their favorite meal. I'm just saying.
Sauerbraten with dumplings and red cabbage.
What is it?
Sauerbraten. It's a German
dish.
It's a German dish. It's pickled pot roast and red cabbage and dumplings.
Is it
kind of
pickled
like the Irish? It's kind of like a corned beef and cabbage for the Irish, right? It's
Is it pickled red cabbage?
yes.
Because we get that over here.
Mhm.
Pickled red cabbage. I love it.
Yeah, it's fantastic.
And sauerkraut I love as well.
Ruff,
Sorry.
just so you know, Herman, Ruff loves everything.
I do. I
He
do.
loves the maps. He loves the everything.
I love every game I play. I love you all. I love you all in the chat. You know, I love everybody. I can't help it. That's the way I am.
All right, let's open up for questions. If you got a question that you would like to ask, here's one here. Herman, are you doing more blind sword regimental games?
Thank you, David. That's a good question. Yes, the answer to that, the short answer is so. Right now, you got Claude, who's one of my developers. He actually designed Kernstown, which one of you guys is doing Kernstown, right? Yeah, Dean. He designed Kernstown. He's going to do Wilson's Creek is the next one.
Okay.
Then somebody is doing Bull Run. I think it's, I don't remember who it is now. Matt Ward, maybe. But next year I will be doing Stones River or Murfreesboro in that system, which is very convenient because it's in Tennessee. So I'm 3 hours from there. So I'm going to drive to the battlefield and actually check it out, which is going to be great. So yes, the answer to your question is yes. After Stones River, I'm not exactly sure.
Have you ever driven down Skyline Drive 5 miles an hour to see bears?
It's funny that Shenandoah. So when I first drove down here on vacation and then later on to visit where we were going to live down here, I would take Route 81, which most people take 95 down the eastern seaboard. That's the main drag. So we figured out it's much nicer to go drive out to Harrisburg, Pennsylvania, go down 81, you go through the Shenandoah, and you go past all the battlefields down that whole Shenandoah Drive, and you see the Blue Ridge Mountains, and the drive and all that stuff. So yes, I actually have driven that. Not all the way, but I'm going to one of these days. And our area over here, we're only half an hour from Smoky Mountain National Park, and it is gorgeous. I mean, it's fascinating to go through there.
Now that you're a permanent host on the show, are you okay with coming as a guest once in a while when he's not too busy?
That's a good one. I like that.
Chris has posted this like 12 times. Like, I missed it the first 12, but I got it the 13th. If you go back in time and change something in one game you have designed, what would that one change be?
Boy, Chris asked me these really
he's getting these in-depth things, doesn't he?
Yeah.
I'm thinking change that. I wouldn't change that. Boy, I don't think so.
I think your designs are perfect so far. So
God, what do I regret? I think I would probably make Crowbar a little easier. It's
No.
See, this debate comes up a lot because a lot of people say in Magnificent Style is the right scope for that system, and that Crowbar might have been a bridge too far, essentially, for that system.
With Crowbar, you're doomed the moment you open the box, and that's that thing. I've got to try and get a bit further. I've got to try and do this. I think I disagree, but that's me.
The only other one, like I said before, and the reason I would do the Western version is I think Zed's got away from what it originally was. I think if I could stick a lid on it and keep it more in that second edition size and scope and difficulty, I would have rather than go third edition and just blow it all up, stay and do another game and continue the story. Alan and I had more story for the Zed's universe that was going to be the next game after the second edition. We were going to take Dr. Martus, and what I wanted to do was do an inside out States of Siege game, basically where you start from the inside and you had to break out rather than the other way. Okay. So what we were talking about doing is where there would be the story after the first Zeds game would be that the Zeds escaped and that there was a secret compound of them brewing up, right? And they would try to escape out to the world, and you would have to contain them. So basically a reverse States of Siege game, but we never got to that point. So if I probably, if I could go back to that and redesign all that, you know, so it's a little bit more accessible and maybe continue the story rather than expand the game out to co-op or whatever.
Favorite non-war game now?
Favorite non-war game?
Yes.
Well, Robo Rally would be too easy because I just mentioned that before, right?
Yeah, that would be too easy.
I would have to say, I have to look at my shelf over here. Oh, Street Masters.
Street Masters.
Street Masters by the Sadler Brothers.
Oh, right. Yeah, I've heard of those.
They have a modular deck system, which I just love. They just did Alter Quest, which is a dungeon which I have on the top of that big pile of Kickstarter boxes there. That's
wow.
Yeah. And right next to it is Street Masters. It is basically a kung fu movie in a box with miniatures.
Oh, that would be awesome.
Yeah, and they have this modular deck system, which I find fascinating because it's so well organized and procedural. So it looks confusing at the beginning, but it's very logical that you go from step to step. I keep hitting my microphone, sorry. Step to step, and it's so rich in theme and variability because there's so many characters and so many scenarios. It's a fascinating, fun game. By the way, what you see behind me here on the table is actually Great War Commander.
Okay.
Have you guys played any of that? Have you tried that?
No.
Not the Great War. I've done Combat Commander, but not the Great War Commander.
Yeah, it's interesting. I played a lot of Combat Commander back in the day, and I loved it. And you know, I got away from it, and then Great War Commander came out. I just recently got it, so I'm relearning it. And there's one thing I discovered. We talk about a little news flash here, but I didn't even realize it. But Combat Commander actually influenced me in designing Blind Swords, and I didn't even realize it. But as I was playing this game, I go, oh, yeah, that's right. Combat Commander did this, and it did this, and it did this. And that's what I really liked about it. When I go into a game, I like the adventure of the game. So I'm not a chess guy. I'm not a you deploy this way, here's your opening move, you know, the tournament type of game, I guess you'd say. This game was like all of a sudden the victory conditions would change, or units would just show up, or, you know, a card would do something weird. And to me, that was exciting to play it that way. And I think in a way that actually influenced me in Blind Swords, because I like that feeling of not knowing what was going to happen next. Those events, right? The events that kept happening with the card play.
Right. You're just never sure. Right.
Yeah. You know, I like the adventure of discovering and thinking on the fly.
Do you have you signed up or have any game conventions you're planning on going to this year?
Well, I was going to go to PresCon, but obviously that got moved to next year. So Origins in end of September, early October, they moved Origins to that, so I'll be there. Okay. I don't know if I'm going to go to WBC. That's in August, so I don't know. I'm supposed to get my vaccine shot on the 25th, and then you got to wait for the second one. You know, so who knows? God knows what's going to happen.
You think you might get out to a couple of them this year, though?
Yeah.
Or you're hoping to?
Trying to.
I'm hoping to get to WBC next year, just because everybody says it's a great little convention.
It is a good convention. I haven't been at the new facility yet. The one in was it Silver Springs? Yeah, Silver Springs, I think. That's a good convention. PresCon was surprisingly fun. That was a good medium-sized convention. Origins is always a blast.
That's huge, isn't it? Huge.
It's huge, but it's not as big as Gen Con.
Huge.
It's even bigger.
How about ConSim or GMT?
Oh, yeah, GMT, yeah. Mike said get along to GMT, yeah.
Yeah, I used to go to GMT East, Mike, which was in what the heck is that? Well, it was in New York. All right. And I haven't been out west. I used to go to Concert World in Tempe. I used to do that quite often. Then I just stopped going for whatever reason. I forget. I think it was work. I couldn't get out of work to go, so I just stopped going out there. But now that I'm retired, I have more leverage. I definitely want to go to GMT West one of these days. I've never been out there.
Well, Mike said he's putting us all up.
Yeah, Mike said he's going to have us out there.
You up as well, I'm sure.
Gene has got the suite already for us. So,
yeah. Does Mike live out there? Is he in California?
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, he's right out. I think
he's
he said
there
it was like
he's right there in Fresno. With
Bring an extra suitcase, he said, because you'll be taking loads of games back. Because there's lots of good deals. So, yeah.
That is a big problem when you fly to these conventions. You can when we go to Origins, it's like, how do I get all these games back now?
Yeah.
If you got any
my friend Harvey always
final questions for
satchel.
Herman, post them in the chat. We're going to wind up in about 10, 15 minutes here. So if you got any more questions. Tony, you got some questions, man?
Jay's got one.
Oh, Jay's got one?
Yeah.
Oh, here we go.
Lovely.
Some designers really delve into the topic when they design a game, like learning another language. Do you acquire any special skills or obscure knowledge in your design process?
Well, that's interesting. I find out things. I mean, when you really start digging into certain subjects, you do find out things that you didn't know before. I mean, I learned a lot. I was interested in doing at any cost just on the surface, but when you really start digging in there, you find out all sorts of little tidbits of information. And even a game like I said, like Stonewall Sword, I knew nothing about Cedar Mountain before I started researching the game, and so I learned the game and the battle at the same time. Different languages.
Since you did the Mets game, ever thought about doing a strategic Franco-Prussian war game?
Yeah, I've thought of it, Nathan, and I don't know. I think the downfall of most Franco-Prussian war games is doing them at the strategic level, because I don't think the French really have a shot at that level, right? I think the interesting part of that war is at the tactical operational level. Too many people get a certain idea of how that war went playing the strategic game. And if you want to recreate what actually happened, it's got to be one-sided, right? But when you study the actual battles, and I guess this is what I was answering before, when you start getting into the details of the battles as they occur, you realize the thing was a much closer run affair than you think. Like, for example, the first battle of the war was the Battle of Spickern, which was right on the border by Saarbrücken, and the German commander, Steinmetz, actually marched in front of his own troops, cut them all off. I mean, this was a disaster occurring right off the bat during the Franco-Prussian War. And had the French had more aggressive and more aware commanders, they could have taken advantage of it. They should have won that first battle of that war, and that could have changed the whole focus of the war, right? So you find, as you research, you do find these little tidbits of interesting information like that. And so, yeah, I mean, that's it is a fascinating hobby, I got to say.
Chris has a request for you. Do the Magnificent style mechanic for a Punic War themed game, Release the Elephants.
Release the Elephants.
Elephants.
Yeah, you're not the first one that said, in Magnificent style would work really well for an Ancients game.
Yeah. I think it would.
It might. It might.
Think about it. If you got some breaking news on that, we can have you back.
that is, I mean, Ancients is not my thing, but do a reverse. All right, let's see.
What's Mo saying?
Like
okay. So Mo is saying,
make it the stand of the 300 Spartans at Thermopylae. Oh, the wheels are spinning. I see them spinning.
But a reverse in Magnificent style would be kind of like a States of Siege game, wouldn't it? So you're saying be the 300 Spartans as the Persians come at you?
Yeah, because there's a bad.
People want to play the Persians there, Herman. What do you think? No, they want to play the 300 Spartans.
Right. You'd want to play the 300 Spartans, I assume, no?
I would.
Yeah.
Right. So you're standing and defending that. So that's like a tower defense thing.
Yeah.
Uh-oh, he's
An
thinking.
Inside Out SOS game.
Well, an Inside Out, yeah. I think somebody may have either done it or tried. Is there like a Jihad game or something?
The Jihad game, yeah. It's you're keeping it in from expanding out.
Yeah.
Okay. Yeah. So somebody did do that, but I remember Alan and I talking about that years ago about reversing.
Urban Madison. Yeah, I think that's who it was.
Right. It was Ben Madison. Right. He does a lot of good designing.
I've been impressed with the stuff I've got of his too. Yeah.
Yeah. He does it mostly through White Dog Games, right?
Yeah.
Yep.
Yeah.
Tony, you got any more news, or is that all your news you wanted to share?
I don't know. Ask Dean.
The only thing is me and about 3 other people, including Mitch Land, are going to be creating a ATS, Advanced Turbowork System, kind of a what you need to know, how to learn, different website, as well as a YouTube channel to teach that, because there's a lot of people that won't want to go the ASL route, and they don't. And then, they want to take the next step up from lock and load tactical. So we're working on that. So
you, Mitch, and who else? Who's the
a guy named Evan, somebody I'm playing. We're doing a tournament, ATS tournament right now, but the system is so good, it's a company issue. And anybody that knows Critical Hit knows it, but the system itself I think is that good in between tactical system. It's also an impulse system, and I don't know if we're on, but anything that's impulse is right up my alley. I love impulse systems because I think you can fluctuate. Strategy can change instantly. That's the other thing we're working on doing.
Right. Thinking on the fly. That's what I like in my games too. That's how do you adjust to a changing situation?
Yep. So we're working on that, and that's it. We're, instead of just releasing it with just a few things, we're going to build up a huge content log and then kind of let it all out. So that's because thanks, Mo. But so we're always having content and stuff like that instead. So we want to get a whole bunch of content out. So
it's something I wanted to look into. Let me play through Lock and Load Tactical. I'm not sure about ASL. I've got the starter kits. I want to try that. But the Brook, I'd like to have a look at it.
Probably the biggest thing is where to start. And that's what we need to do. That's our first kind of goal.
Well, like me saying, Tony, what's best to go first? Yeah.
I'm really looking forward to that horror game.
Yeah.
That sounds really, really good. When I know this might not be able to say, but are we talking, you think it 2021 or 2022, you think?
From the plan is that it should be on the P500 by the end of the summer if everything goes well. So right now it's in play testing. I know Gene's played it, Luke's played it, Rachel's played it. They all like it. And I know that the guys who are play tested developers now have played it and they love it. So it's just a matter of just, getting the rough edges off and making sure that it's balanced. It's very tough balancing an asymmetrical. You got four factions. You want to make sure that not, I don't want to read posts that say, always take this faction because you'll always win, or whatever. Or don't take this faction, they suck. So you want to make sure they all contribute something.
Their special abilities no good. You'll never use
them. That kind of stuff. And
so it's a 1, 2, 3, or 4 player.
Yes.
Game. So it'd be because that's the other thing why I'm doing these other games is that my wife doesn't want to play Holland 44.
Right.
She'll play Alien and she'll play Tiny Epic Galaxies and she might play this horror one as well. So,
that was part of the idea was that
my son,
was to design it so that non-wargamers would want to play it.
So send me a copy. I'll get the family playing it.
You got you got it.
All right, guys, we got about 5 minutes. If you have any last questions, thoughts, comments for Herman, want to find out any more information. I know Ruff spoiled it all for us earlier, but that's okay. That's his job. So
and he's good at it.
He did good. He did good. Go back and watch Herman's face because he went like this. He went literally, and it went completely red. They're like, "Oh my God, we're on to something."
I've been walking outside trying to get back in shape here because it's been beautiful here. So now my face is all sunburned. But
yeah, it's good. Oh, the other thing I want to ask you, Herman, because you're a big, I understand, a big fan of Warfighter, like I am.
Yes, I have the modern one.
You like the modern more than the World War II?
Only because the scenarios are a bit, they're a little bit more wild.
Yeah. I mean, I've only got the base game of modern, but
I just got the 2 African Warlord sets. So I was playing with a bunch of like 100-point squad, and I got 3 spaces.
Yeah, I know it's crazy. I was thinking of doing a live stream of it, but I'm knowing my luck, I'll get 1 space in, and that'll be it, and that'll be over in 10 minutes. And I go, thanks for watching. The
game's tough. It is fun. It's basically a simple game. It's really not a hard game at all.
But again,
it makes it look hard, but it's not.
It draws you in. It draws you in, and you really want your team to do well. It's weird.
Yeah.
It's weird. But yeah, I love it too. So
and again, it's that excitement factor of flipping. Like, who's going to show up at this location? You're flipping. No, not them. Not the Rocket Team. No.
Jeez.
Here's a wild and crazy suggestion. We talked about sports for just a second, right? But you could do a sports war game, right? So you have like the pitcher is different tanks, right? And the bigger the tank, the faster the fastball is. You can have different positions. You can have different positions, right? So you could have like a machine gun team. They can spray the ball all over the field because they're a machine gun team, right?
Oh boy. I thought you were going to go with the British and Germans playing soccer on Christmas Day in World War I. I thought you were going to go there.
I
think you should throw that to Gene. I think Gene would go for a sports war game.
Here's one. The football game, soccer game, the Sylvester Stallone film where they play the
in the POW camp, right?
Yeah. Well, expect that next year, Herman.
There you go. You put it in my queue for me, will you?
Yeah, World War II and sports. There you go. That's
All right, last question for me.
Yeah.
The Kickstarter soon?
Soon? Yes, soon.
When soon?
Like I said, I texted Mark and said, "You got any updated dates?" And I didn't get an answer. So
check your phone. Go check your phone right now.
It's going to be very soon. He told me it's officially spring of this year, but it's going to be soon.
Yeah, it's a shame. You're hoping it was today, but there you go. Never mind.
I wanted to give you the big scoop, but Dean beat me to it. He's got other scoops.
Fantasy League Gladiator.
There you go.
Combat baseball. There's so many cool things you could do with this.
I know one game that Dean does not know about that I worked on years ago, back in the 80s or something like that I submitted to Avalon Hill.
Oh, yeah.
And they sent it back to me saying, "This is a really good idea, but we can't do this game." But it was a game called Fairways and Flames. It was combat golf.
Yeah.
I'm telling you, sniper putters, rocket launching golf carts, and you can put T-mines out, and it was this whole big involved thing. But Avalon Hill was not ready for it. What can I say?
No. That was way too outside there. Outside the little box.
Dean would sign up for combat golf now, right?
Oh, I would, and all the time. And the other thing is, my wife actually sent off a game to Hasbro in the 80s, and had it was over here, and had one of the Hasbro brothers come over and talk about it, but it didn't happen. But there you go. But yeah, it's quite exciting.
Very nice, Mo. I like that suggestion.
Yeah, you have this random golf ball.
I mean, to submit to Hasbro, didn't you like need an agent or something like that? You couldn't just write to them.
She said she submitted it somewhere, and some guy called whatever Hasbro came down and saw her.
Yeah.
I can only assume, being a very unusual surname, that it might have been somebody from Hasbro, one of the, but or just somebody from down the road who had to have the surname Hasbro. But
Right.
I don't know. But yeah.
Wow.
Amazonia, I think it was called, or Amazonian, or Amazon, something like that.
Right.
Something.
Cool.
You talk to Gene, tell him to come on the show. We got a lot of suggestions for games coming up.
He doesn't do them. If you can get him on, that'll be a first. Yeah. Tell him to come on. He doesn't like doing them, or won't do them.
He should come on. We got a lot of suggestions for him. We can talk about upcoming projects. We can find out what his favorite food is. We can find out what his favorite band is.
He's widening the catalog.
Yeah, we can say Herman said and suggested.
Yeah. Yes.
Please do that. Ruff's going to hold up his sheet and go, if you don't give us the information, we'll know it. We're going to spoil it.
I'll do it. I'll do that as well. Yeah, that was fun.
Nice. Yes.
Yeah, we have about ready to wrap things up. Big shout out to
Thank you, Chris. Thank you for all the great questions, everybody.
Yeah. Great times. Great times. We would love to have you back sometime. Maybe when you have some more news, you can come on. Until then, I mean, seriously.
We can just go to Ruff.
Just ask Dean. Yeah.
Thanks, Herman. Thank you. It's 2 hours. Look, I told you it goes like that, doesn't it?
It really does. It's amazing.
I think we wore him out. He's about ready to get off. He's like, I think I'm done.
But yeah, thanks everyone. Thanks for turning up, and thank you, Herman. Really appreciate it.
No, thank you for having me. I really appreciate it. I had a lot of fun.
Without you, Tony wouldn't even have come back.
Thank you for coming, Tony. I appreciate it. I'm honored.
You're welcome. Hey, anytime I can make it, I'm open. I'm free. It's free. Just let me know. I'd gladly jump in.
We're hearing about all of his projects now, so who knows if he'll be able to squeeze us in anymore, Ruff.
It'd be too fun to come on, wouldn't he?
Yeah.
What the heck has you got me this time?
That's right.
I'm going to convention at the end of April.
Hang on, Herman. We want to just talk to you offline for just a second. Everyone that came out, thank you very much, guys. We appreciate you.
Thank you, everybody.
We appreciate you. We toast you. We love you for coming out next week. Another special guest, and maybe even Tony. We'll see you all there.
Ta-da, everyone.
Take care.